All right, so I just got some models in of the iPhone 11 devices, or iPhone XI, whatever they end up calling it. But I think these are going to be called the iPhone 11. And I have 5 dummy models. I have 2 kind of like finished looking models that have, I don't know, an aesthetic that seems to be quite representative of what they'll actually look like in the retail store. And then I also have 3, these are kind of like they look like they're machined models that case makers use to make a case for. So I think in terms of like actual dimensions, these are more accurate, but these ones are more aesthetically similar to the real version. All right, so if you are unfamiliar with this stuff, if you haven't looked at any of the iPhone rumors, like the iPhone 11 rumors or leaked videos or anything like that, I'll just go through a quick just rundown of what is to be expected this fall. There's going to be 3 models, supposedly, an iPhone 11, the normal sized one, and then a bigger version, presumably the iPhone 11 Max, and then we have the budget iPhone, which I imagine would be called the iPhone 11R. Now, all 3 of these phones correspond to the current lineup, the XS, the XS Max, and the XR. The biggest difference aesthetically between these upcoming iPhone 11 models and the existing lineup is the camera system on the back. So if you look at the back, there is a triple camera system on the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 11 Max. The iPhone 11R, like the budget version, still has a square-shaped camera hump. It's not perfectly square compared to the other 2, but it only has 2 cameras. So the ones with the triple camera setup, the 11 and the 11 Max, they are supposedly running a wide-angle camera as the third lens. The past 2 generations of iPhones, even on the top end, they've only had 2 lenses, like a zoom and a normal lens, but this third camera lens on these new phones is supposed to provide a much wider focal length. So this is a technology, it's not really a technology, but it's a feature that has existed on a lot of other phones, like Android phones have had them for a while, but this is the first time we'll have seen an ultra-wide on an iPhone, and it's something that I really like. I'm glad that they're putting this on. I find that when I shoot for photography, and a lot of my friends and family, we just shoot wide. It's just, you can see more stuff and you can always capture the whole thing. Like if you ever want to, you can always zoom in on a photo later, but if you start off with just regular focal lengths or zoomed in focal lengths, you just lose all that picture that you would otherwise have seen. So yeah, finally, ultra wide lenses on iPhones. That's nice. Now, a lot of the phone, unfortunately, remains unchanged from last year's model and even the previous generation from 2017. So we still have the Lightning port, fantastic. We still have OLED screens up front, same sizing. The phones are supposed to be a little bit thicker for 2019, but the overall look and feel and functionality of this phone remains largely unchanged from last year and even the year before. I'm someone who was excited by the iPhone X when it launched in 2017. It was a really cool phone. It was just a really fresh design to what iPhones were at the time. And then the iPhone XS came out, and it was a little bit underwhelming to me. Like, I just thought that not a lot had changed. And the reality is, aside from the camera, not really all that much had changed. And then this year's model, because it's so similar in design and feel and look again, it feels, once again, a little underwhelming to me based on these models and these dummy phones. I actually think it takes some serious confidence to take these phones and sell them in 2019. Now, there are some upgrades internally for these phones. Like, we're probably going to see some new processors. Those processors will help the camera system, right? The whole functionality of these triple camera systems or the dual camera system is based heavily on that processing power. And I imagine we'll get some better low light processing. That is something that iPhone's camera system has kind of fallen behind over the years. Like, if you look at the market right now, companies like Huawei with their P30 and P30 Plus, their low light photography is just miles ahead when it comes to what the iPhone can deliver. And the reason being, iPhones, they try to do their processing in real time. Like, whatever you're seeing on your phone screen when you shoot is what your picture is going to look like. Whereas companies like Huawei, they'll process it just after you snap the shutter. So it'll process it and then display this nice looking image. But because the iPhones have put this emphasis on real-time processing on the camera's screen while you're shooting photography, it's fallen behind a little bit. So having a faster processor in these new iPhones will definitely help with these low light images. It's also supposed to have reverse wireless charging, kind of like the Samsung and Huawei phones. So if you have wireless AirPods or an Apple Watch, you could theoretically charge it off the back of these upcoming iPhone 11s. Now, the hardware on these phones is an upgrade compared to last year's iPhones, but some of this hardware is starting to show its age, like the lightning port in particular, the notch on the front. A lot of the competitors out there have moved on to technologies that just look and feel like newer stuff. This stuff is definitely starting to show its age. Next year's models, the 2020 iPhones, are rumored to have a pretty big redesign with USB-C and new screen size options. So if you're in the market for a new phone and you don't really need to get an upgrade for 2019, I would totally wait. Like the 2020 ones look so much better. So this was one of the reasons why I was comfortable making my last video of how I was switching over to Android's phones, because the current Apple lineup and the ones that are coming out in the couple of months just aren't compelling devices to me. Like, companies have to sell you stuff, right? They have to sell products to people to stay in business, but that's their job. Like, they're trying to sell you stuff that you don't need. Like, these phones in particular feel like they're just such underwhelming phones, but they're gonna sell. Like, Apple's really good at marketing stuff and making people want things that they don't need. Their videos look phenomenal, and I'm actually curious to see what Apple does with these phones in their product videos. Like, how are they gonna make these square humps look super sexy? I'm sure they're gonna do it. It's just, I'd like to see what it actually looks like in the fall. But every company is guilty of this, right? Samsung, OnePlus, Google, every phone company does this. They push products that people don't need. But this year with the iPhone 11, from what we've seen, like the data we have so far on these phones, I don't know, man. I would totally skip this year or the 2019 models and go for the 2020 models, because, I mean, you see this stuff, right? It really is just a third camera lens on a design aesthetic that we've seen for the past 2 years. Now, this might be enough for some people. If you're an iPhone user that's always wanted an ultra-wide lens on their phone, this might be enough, but I think for most people, this is not a particularly compelling year to upgrade your phone. That basically wraps this up. If you enjoyed this, give me some thumbs. If you loved it, give me some subs. See you guys next time.